Uh, yeah, no, sure. Well, I mean, speaking of like reliving, old conflicts, it's like we're reliving 2016 all over again.
Yeah.
With Trump coming into office, and this time he is appointing people to his cabinet who were, a part of his team when he was pushing back against the scandal, the fake scandal that engulfed him last time he entered office, which was Russiagate, when he was framed as a Russian agent. And the person he's just appointed to head the FBI is Kash Patel, who is a pretty interesting figure, and I've interviewed him here at the Grayzone before. He played a really critical role exposing the FBI's abuses in carrying out Russiagate and getting surveillance warrants against members of Trump's campaign and lying in the process, and concealing the fact that they were relying on the Steele dossier, which was funded by the Clinton campaign, and pretending as if they had vetted Steele as some sort of credible source, when really he was just a paid operative of the Clinton campaign. So Kash Patel helped expose this when he was an investigator at the House Intelligence Committee, and because of that, he's really loathed in Washington. And there's accordingly now been a freak out about him being appointed to head the FBI. But I just see it as the direct result of Trump being framed as a Russian agent, which everybody wants to forget about, in part because I think it's so embarrassing for everyone who fell for it. Like, we were one of the few sites that didn't go along with this insane mania over
one of the few lefty sites, I guess.
Lefty sites over fictional Russian interference, and this idea of a sprawling conspiracy between Trump and Russia. It's a long time ago now, but this was the dominant theme, and everybody fell for it. And Kash Patel is someone who, as an investigator, helped debunk it. And so right now, him being appointed to head the FBI, the very agency that was weaponized to frame Trump as a Russian agent, that is causing alarm bells in Washington among the people who pushed the whole Russiagate scam.
Let's watch a portion of your interview with Kash Patel on the CrowdStrike dimension.
Do you know what happened there? Has there ever been any attempt to find out was there a serious attempt by the FBI to get access? And do you know who denied it? And let me set up this clip first, because as you say, it's incredibly strange. So what I'm talking about here is basically the FBI admitted under oath that they didn't conduct their own investigation of the DNC servers when Democrats and the firm they hired, CrowdStrike, claimed they were hacked by Russia. Instead, the FBI relied on the forensics of CrowdStrike, which, just like Christopher Steele, was working for Hillary Clinton as Hillary Clinton was framing Trump as a Russian agent. So I'm asking Kash Patel here about the FBI's odd reliance on a Clinton campaign contractor, CrowdStrike, rather than conducting its own forensic investigation of the DNC servers. Strange to let the purported victim, the Democratic Party, control the investigation of this most critical issue, this foundational issue of the hacking of the DNC server. I mean, this was the incident that basically kicked off Russiagate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal to have one of the two largest political parties in the United States of America say they were hacked by one of our biggest opponents. You would want the US government to find that out for the American people. Didn't matter if it was a DNC that was hacked or the RNC, you would want to know that. And what James Comey did was he basically said, I am smarter than everybody else, which is what he always does, and used government speak to trample on how an investigation is normally run. Here's how you get to the details, Aaron. You subpoena the servers. You, the FBI, and the Department of Justice have full-out subpoena authority on an investigation of this magnitude when you're saying a foreign country interfered and broke into the servers of a political party in America. You can go to an Article 3 judge and get a warrant overnight for that. They refused to do that. When we asked them why they didn't do that, they didn't give us an answer. They just said what you said a little bit ago. CrowdStrike's great. We can trust them. I've never in my life, and this goes back to my public defender days, ever been able to convince the FBI that, oh, hey, by the way, what my defendant is saying, the company he used is good enough. You, the FBI, don't have to look at it. Every judge would have laughed me out of federal court. Every FBI agent, and rightfully so, would have said, we're hitting you with a subpoena if you don't want to help us investigate this actual crime. And for some reason, James Comey was able to dupe the Obama administration's DOJ and then later the Trump administration's DOJ into continuing this charade. And he has never been asked pinpoint a question and answer on that doesn't result in him saying CrowdStrike is great.
So that's one of your two interviews with FBI director nominee Kash Patel when he was a House investigator on the Russiagate saga. And I mean, they're epic interviews. It was before he was well known. I think the second one is incredible. It starts out with him describing how he's discovered that the FISA warrant for Carter Page was actually the product of the bogus Steele dossier, which is just such a shocking national security scandal, that a dossier that was paid for by the Clinton campaign to a former MI6 agent for hire, which is just filled with lies, actually got an American citizen wiretapped by the FBI, by the Department of Justice, just showing weaponization. And now we're being told Kash Patel's going to weaponize the FBI. But really what this is sort of revenge for the weaponization of the FBI.
Yeah, and his background, he's a former public defender. I don't know if there's ever been an FBI director nominee, who's ever had that on his resume, being a public defender. And then, he is very loyal to Trump. I mean, that's no secret. So Trump certainly has an interest here in installing a loyalist. But again, this is the product. This is what happens when you're as an agency, you take part in framing a candidate turned president as a Russian agent, which is what the FBI did. There's even affidavits. There's one affidavit from an FBI agent who asked to be taken off of the Russia investigation because it was so biased and they knew there was nothing there, but they still continued it. So Kash Patel is a result of this. And he's someone who is hated in Washington, not because, he'll do Trump's bidding. People don't care about a loyalist FBI director. There have been plenty of those, but because he's actually been critical of the intelligence agencies and their role in abusing their position. And so his nomination is going to be really interesting. And we'll see, how he'll do under Senate questioning. But the awkward thing for Democrats and anybody opposed to Kash Patel is that he was right about Russiagate. David Ignatius, who's a columnist for the Washington Post, very close to intelligence officials, he even acknowledged in a column about Kash Patel that when it comes to Russiagate, Kash Patel, quote, hit pay dirt, because he did. It was such a scam, and so that like anybody who exposed it is going to be on the right side. So this is Russiagate returning, and we'll see how the people who have an interest in covering up Russiagate handle the fact that one of the people who helped expose it is being nominated to head the FBI. It's going to be pretty interesting.
Here's Kash Patel on shutting down the J. Edgar Hoover FBI headquarters.
What do you do about the FBI? What does should he do about the FBI when he gets into office? Because I got to believe these agents, many of them are dug in deep.
Look, one of my biggest personal recommendations is you shut down the FBI headquarters building and open it up the next day as the Museum of the Deep State. And you send those 7,000 agents in the headquarters building downrange to chase down rapists, to chase down murderers, to chase down drug traffickers, and let the cops be cops on the streets across America. You keep a small contingent in Washington, D.C. That's step one. You get rid of half of the legion of lawyers and special counsels that exist within the FBI to do one thing, to corrupt and obstruct government oversight from constitutionally applicable committees in Congress. And another aspect of it real quick is one of the biggest institutions in the FBI that has been troubled and politicized and weaponized has been their intel component. We have an intel agency. I don't need it to be redone within the walls of the FBI. We've shown when we've given them that power, what they do to it. They unlawfully surveil a president and his candidate. So those are three quick things that we could rattle off. That would be my recommendation to reform the FBI.
So, I mean, a lot of this is motivated by support for Trump, partisanship, but why is the FBI building even named for J. Edgar Hoover? And, who's attacking Kash Patel? It's people like Andrew McCabe. People were claiming, oh, he's going to weaponize the Bureau. Or Tom Nichols, this like liberal cartoon at the Atlantic magazine. If Donald Trump's goal is to break the FBI and turn it into an instrument of revenge, Kash Patel is the perfect nominee to run it. I mean, turn it into an instrument of revenge. The building is named after J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah.
What do you think it's about?
Yeah.
What do you think it's been doing to the American people?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anything to weaken the bureaucratic power, the overwhelming bureaucratic power of the FBI and all of the fake investigations it carries out to justify its priorities and make its paychecks, all the politicized investigations to actually go after real criminals. I mean, it is refreshing to hear a call for that. I don't know if it will come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Trump and his circle. I mean, there's a lot of talk about taking on the deep state, but what did Trump actually do in office about that? Nothing. We'll see if he's learned his lesson, if anything changes this round. And the real test, I think, of all these vows to uphold the Constitution and undermine surveillance abuses will be not just when it serves Trump's interests. So, like, for example, going after the people who perpetrated Russiagate, which I do think is important. There needs to be accountability for it. There hasn't really been any yet. But also, like, what happens if Trump and his allies start calling for persecuting people who support Palestinian rights, as they've talked about doing? Will Kash Patel implement that? Will the Constitution be followed then, or will free speech go out the window? I mean, that will be the real test. But on the issue of Russiagate alone, it's just a fact that the government was weaponized to undermine a presidential campaign. Their supporters were mocked as dupes of Russia, and there hasn't been accountability for it.
And they were called conspiracy theorists when they pointed out that Trump Tower was actually wiretapped. And
they were called conspiracy theorists for basically doing anything to question the origins of the dumbest conspiracy theory of all time, which is that Trump conspired with Vladimir Putin and was being blackmailed with the P-tape. Like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see.
I guess Kash won't agree to another interview with.
Yeah, no, I think those days are over.
Just think about how many fake cases, fake busts the FBI has carried out, fake terror busts, hundreds of fake terror busts during the war on terror, just to keep the fake war on terror going, where mentally disturbed Muslim men were just set up in manufactured plots by the FBI. That's not weaponization. That's not revenge. The FBI was responsible for the October surprise in the last election, the fake kidnapping plot of Gretchen Whitmer, Michigan governor. Remember that? The FBI managed the entire kidnapping operation through a Michigan militia that was led by paid FBI assets. And the assets who were being paid by the FBI were being told to tell the rest of their low IQ followers that they needed to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. Then once they were agreed, they were all put on trial, and the plot was revealed in October 2020 to give the impression that Donald Trump was somehow connected to a plot to kidnap a political enemy because these people were seen as Trump supporters. In fact, early on during that plot, that FBI created plot, the FBI told the Michigan State Police to stand down at the Michigan State Capitol. I believe this was March 2020, and allow those gun-toting militiamen to storm in protest of the lockdown measures that had been imposed by Gretchen Whitmer, in order to create a sense of fear and to demonize opponents of lockdowns and as gun-toting fanatics. The FBI is so heavily involved in manipulating American politics and interfering in domestic politics and elections, we don't even know. So any amount of reform would be welcome, but I don't expect Kash Patel to be some great progressive there either. So just put that on the record. We've been living kind of like under an intelligence regime or a kind of national security regime since 9/11, and the FBI has been at the heart of it. And we'll have more to say about that at the Grayzone this week. So definitely watch this space. Moving on. I mean, no one is, unless you want to add anything about Kash or the FBI.
No, it's just, it's just Russiagate never dies. And having spent so much time on it, it's important to remember this is not just about like a domestic political squabble between the Trump camp and his opponents. The most serious impact of all this, I think, was to further undermine relations between the U.S. and Russia, to make it impossible to do diplomacy with Russia and to increase tensions. That, to me, was the main, geopolitical consequence of Russiagate, and we're living it now. And it's made, I think, doing a peace deal inside Ukraine that much more difficult. And we'll see whether it constrains Trump to the extent he wants to do a peace deal. I'm not sure if he even wants to, but it certainly constrained him last time. And we'll see how that plays out again.
Well, the new Cold War continues to escalate.